What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes always deliver the big names in the sport of mixed martial arts. Today, we're taking a different path. We're talking to Brittney Palmer, former WEC and UFC ring card girl, also five-time ring card girl of the year, and a wonderful artist. We've seen a lot of her work in the MMA space. Welcome back to Junkie Radio. Brittney, how are you?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm good.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your decision. And I don't mean that in a way like buzz off. That's what we wanted. It's not what we wanted, but it's a celebration of, I think, an occupation that's been actually more than even half of your life when I do the math.
Yeah, I know. It's when you actually put the numbers down. I was like, whoa, 16 years? That's a long time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a long time. And what, I guess, was there something that happened where you just knew now was the time? Was it just the close of the year 2023? Was it something you had told yourself a long time ago, like a certain amount of years, and that's it? Other career opportunities popped up? What triggered this decision? It kind of caught us off guard.
Yeah, it was all of the above. I've done it for a long time, and I think that I've always said, I've had the question so many times, when are you going to quit? When are you going to give another girl a shot? That I get these interview questions. And so I think about it, and I'm 36 years old, and I always said that once my art career started to kind of to level up to where my UFC career is, and I wasn't able to commit to both evenly, then I would have to make the decision. But it was just time. You feel it. My art's blowing up. My life is taking a different path. And I think it's just, you just have a feeling. And then when I found out that I won Ring Girl of the Year, I was actually in New York City working that event. And all of a sudden I was just like, you know what, wouldn't it just be epic if I could use this opportunity where where I have the mic to retire. We don't really get too much of a voice. So to have that opportunity I just thought it was a great way to settle out the year and my career with UFC. And did it.
You and Ariane have been great friends for a long time. And we've heard recently through Dana White that she's also retired. Did you guys even talk about this, or was that just a coincidence?
She retired a little while ago. But yeah, I mean, we had a discussion. I was actually with her when I decided to retire during the awards. We were in New York together, and I just was like, we were at our girlfriend's house, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I did this? And it was, so she knew. I mean, only a selective few people knew. Actually, Dana didn't know until that night.
Okay. I was just thinking, I guess you liked the fact that you had an opportunity to bow out gracefully, speaking words. So like a round number like UFC 300, that didn't enter your mind or nothing like that?
Oh, to do it. So I was, okay, originally I was like thinking UFC 300 could be epic, but everything is going to be so crazy at UFC 300. It wouldn't have gone out the way it was. It wouldn't have been so almost poetic in the way that it's ending out a year, it's closing out a chapter, having the awards, going out on top, I definitely look at it like, did I go too early? But, I made the decision, and I'm really, really happy and busy right now. So, but yeah, UFC 300 was the other option, but this one I think worked out better.
You say go out too early, but I can only imagine, because you and Ariane have kind of done this. You've taken this thing to a new level. No disrespect to your former colleagues, probably friends of yours, but they just haven't picked up that traction that you and Ariane did. I don't know if it had to do with you two, or remember the sport around the time of the Ultimate Fighter and then the years afterward. I mean, it just took off. So could you possibly, they leave the door open where, like, maybe not in a permanent role, but whenever you want to do the catwalk or whatever it's called, the Octagon walk, hey, come on back?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would. I think it would be fun, if you brought, if Ariane and I just did one last go, if it was a super fight, or, remember when they used to bring Holly Madison in?
Yeah.
Something like that would be really cool. And I think, to touch on what you were saying about the other girls, Ariane and I have been there from the very beginning. And this was before we even had, female fighters. So we were kind of the only feminine energy within the sport. And I think that that's why we were able to pick up so much momentum and gain as much traction as we had. But yeah, I think we really did a good job. And I've done the best I can to not make UFC my whole life, to use it as a platform to grow myself in other ways. So not just being the UFC Octagon girl, now it's like she's an artist and I'm working with these big brands and I'm painting and I'm doing the things that I love to help set me up. So it's like UFC gave me a platform. What are you going to do with it? You're going to either just coast on it and just forever be the ring girl, or you're going to use it in a business sense of using it to utilize your craft and what you want to do in your business. And so I think that that's why maybe we've kind of left a little bit of a staple for ring girls.
Brittney, do you ever feel like your artwork could maybe cross paths again with the UFC, with fighters, designing stuff for them or with the fighters themselves?
Yeah, well, I paint for UFC now. I do their t-shirts. So I painted, the last shirt that I did was for International Fight Week. And then the shirt I did before that was, oh my gosh, what was the shirt? I'm completely having a brain meltdown. But I've done Conor McGregor shirts. I painted John Jones shirts. I painted for Reebok, the UFC shirts. So that's definitely going to be something that I want to continuously do. I'm working on a mural project right now hopefully, as long as everything goes as planned, I will be painting it during UFC 300. So I think I will always kind of be in that world of painting with the fighters, just because I have such a good relationship with UFC and I will genuinely still watch the fights. So I want to continuously be creating for them.
You talked a little bit about chemistry, and you have such great chemistry with Ariane. You guys have been together so long. Do you guys have any projects that maybe now that she's not doing that, you're not doing that, you guys can come together and do something else moving forward together?
The sky's honestly the limit, and you always end up starting businesses with your friends, and her and I, we do have a great chemistry and we have a great history. So, maybe a podcast is in our future, or maybe, some kind of collab. But right now, I think that what I'm trying to focus on is, first of all, you kind of get to be completely transparent. There's an identity crisis, right? It's not a crisis, but this is what I've known for so long. Who am I without this? And I have to start establishing this resilience to change and what my next path is, and like how I'm going to balance everything. Because now that I have more time to create my art, what am I going to do with that time? And I think that that's what's my focus right now, rather than just jumping in and starting everything new and complicating things. I need to kind of like declutter, settle in, and then push forward.
Artists have talked about so much, not just in painting, but in music and movies, how much travel has inspired their work. And with the UFC, you've traveled to a lot of places. Is there one particular place that you could say had a big influence on your artwork?
Oh gosh. I think just traveling in general. I mean, I love it when we go to New York. We just did the Australia fight, which after we went to Bali, and it's just such a magical place. But I think it's just life experience and traveling and meeting other people and seeing different art and architecture. Everything affects just who you are as a person. So whether you're a painter or a musician, seeing the world and knowing things that are outside of your bubble will always help you grow.
Who are some people that you've painted for? I know there's some obvious ones like Dana and Joe. Are there any others that would catch us off guard? Like maybe athletes or celebs that just love MMA found out that you could draw, or do you have any, stories from that world that kind of crossed over?
I painted a piece of for Flory, the Golden Knight, the ex-Golden Knight.
Oh, Fleury, yeah, the goalie. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice.
I painted his portrait for him. I painted John Jones, and he owns that painting. I painted Amanda Nunes. She owns that painting. Conor McGregor, Conor owns it. I painted a piece for Lady Gaga, which I presented to her at a New Year's show. I'm currently I'm donating a painting to the Janie's Fund Gala in LA during the Grammys, and that's for Steven Tyler. This is my third donation with that organization. I've worked with UNICEF several times and am far. So it's painting for these big galas, and they usually get auctioned off to really credible collectors. Who else? I mean,
That's quite the list there.
Yeah. Joe Rogan has a piece of mine.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky and blessed to have people that love my work. It's, you put yourself out there, you put what's on inside outside, and people respond to it. You're like, okay, that's my tribe. That's really cool to know.
For example, that painting that's over your right shoulder, or just paintings in general, because I have zero idea. Yeah. Is that like, can that be done in days, weeks, months? I really have no idea.
No problem. This painting, so these, I call them frequency frames. I try to not waste anything, just like in general, as like a life motto, to not be wasteful. So when I paint things, I recycle the paint onto canvases and turn that recycled paint into an abstract canvas. So this painting is actually probably 4 paintings that I painted on top of it. So it's ultimately like a collection of other artwork that I've done.
Okay, and then I guess the other question would be, how many paintings can you do in a year? Do you even have an idea of how that works? Because now you said you're going to commit more time, and that's going to be your career. You don't have the travel, the events, and the other things that involve representing the UFC.
I could say I could probably do comfortably like 4 paintings a month.
Wow.
Depends. Yeah, it depends on how big it is. It depends on what exactly it is. I can do, portrait paintings, abstract paintings. It honestly depends on the kind of work and the size.
Does a painting get your full focus until it's done, or can you stop halfway, go to something else? Does it refresh your brain in any way, or how does that work?
I honestly am trying to master that, like stopping halfway and focusing on something else. I can't do that. I have to focus. And I think that, after retiring and actually seeing how much time I have now, I started to understand how much time UFC actually took from creating, because UFC, yes, it's a Saturday thing, but you got to travel there on Thursday. You have weigh-ins on Friday. You have the fight on Saturday. You fly back Sunday, and then Monday you're kind of like, you want to like rest. Plus, I have the day to get ready. So when I would prep, do all the spray tan and the things the day before. So it really did take a lot of time away. And my mentality is, if I only have 2 days to start a painting, I won't start it. Like, I need to have a good week. So I don't leave it mid and then go back to it, because when you're in, like, it's called, like, you have a creative flow. And so when you're in that flow, like, it's a flow state, what they call it. It's like when your creativity just kind of goes through and you're flowing. When I stop it, sometimes I won't pick back up exactly, but sometimes I need it. So sometimes I'll take a break and I'm like, okay, I just need to step away from the canvas. It's too much. And then the next day I'll go with a fresh set of eyes. But I like to go all the way through and just finish what I have done.
What can spawn an idea for a painting? Is it as simple as you could be on the UFC bus going from hotel to an arena, you go over a bridge and you just see a sunset or a building? Can that trigger right away something, or does your mind work in another way, I guess?
I think creativity works. It's just when you stay still and you just listen to those thoughts, and you don't doubt yourself. I am really good at listening to the inner communication of having something. So if I'm stuck on colors, or if I'm stuck on a subject, I just sit with myself. I'll listen to music for titles. Like, I love naming paintings after song titles. That's a really good way for me to do, because creativity, it's so much more than it's painting. It's the color theory, it's the subject, it's the application, and then it's the title. It's a whole thing. So anything can inspire me. If I'm looking for inspiration, like right now, I'm looking for inspiration for the mural that I'm painting during UFC 300, which I came up with an incredible idea yesterday. And it literally was just like me just talking it over with my manager, and then, putting what I'm doing, what time it is, like what I want to accomplish. And then boom, it just comes. You just blurt it out.
You've had so many events and so many memories, so I know it's probably hard to pick one unless you have one, but what are some that stand out for you over your career with WEC and mostly UFC?
Honestly, when I got to paint the shirts for Reebok, this was years ago, and we did a signing at the Reebok store here in Las Vegas, and it was way off the strip, and the line was around the corner, all to have me sign the shirts that I painted, and to see the fighters at weigh-ins wearing the shirts and the hats, and I was standing there in my uniform, knowing that I painted that was just such an iconic moment to be supported by the company I love so much. I think that was a really beautiful time for me to realize, like, hey, you're an artist. You know, you're not just doing this as a hobby anymore. They see you and believe in you enough to have you rep it. So I thought that was really cool. And honestly, this last event was really impactful because I got to retire on my terms. I wasn't kicked out. I wasn't pushed out. I wasn't aged out. You know, I did it the way I wanted to go out. And I think that that's powerful because I chose to do something because I felt that it was time, not because someone told me it was time. And as a woman in this sport, to be able to give yourself an audience and a voice to do it, I thought that was really, really cool. And, you know, I was proud of myself. And then, you know, the last fight, I'm standing back and I'm kind of looking around, realizing I'm never going to be in this position anymore. And it was bittersweet. I mean, it wasn't bitter, but like, it was more like, oh, it was just such an end of a really long era. So I think that was a really beautiful event too.
What did Dana say to you when you told him you wanted to retire?
Well, he didn't really believe it. Because I had told him before I was presenting his award, and I had actually tried to text him and tell him what I wanted to do. And he kind of like just didn't respond. So I mean, I wasn't going to chase him. I was like, Dana, I need to talk to you for 2 minutes. And it was after Thanksgiving. And I just thought it would have been the right thing to do to let him know that I was planning on retiring. And I didn't hear back from him. So I was like, well, I guess he's going to have to find out at the award show. So when I went up to him, I pulled him back, you know, backstage. And I was like, listen, I'm retiring tonight. He's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to tell you. He's like, I thought you wanted to talk about something else. I was like, no, this is what I want. And he was just like, well, what are you going to do? And you know, and he was excited for me. I mean, I'm sure he assumed that something was going to come eventually. Like, we can't be there forever. We want to. I mean, it's so fun. It's like you get to travel with this like circus, and everyone knows each other and loves each other, and it's such an adventure. But you know, eventually you're going to have to like, you know, start a new life.
I've been holding on to this question for a few years, but I was texting you during the first show back after COVID. And it was you and a few others. I was like, hey, good for you guys. The stage, you guys were on the world stage. Everyone was watching because there was nothing else going on. And I thought it was amazing that, you know, the UFC was pretty flexible, and whoever felt comfortable can go, and whoever doesn't, we won't hold it against you. And I believe you were the only ring card girl there. What was that day like? Because, you know, I mean, honestly, we have to teleport. I don't know what the word is. Transport ourselves to 3 years ago. Now we all know what that's like, right? But back then, a lot of uncertainty. But what was that night like for you?
Well, for the record, I text Dana and said, because when they had announced that they were going to do it, I text Dana. I was the only ring girl that did. And I was like, dude, I'm in. I don't even think they were planning on having us. So I wanted to do it. I was down.
Yeah.
We were sitting in the house. I wasn't afraid. And I was excited. I was obviously, the world was in a different place, and we were all in our own, you know, bubbles. And I just was excited to break free and to be a part of something. And to just, when you're locked in, like everyone was, and you have your immediate family or whoever you're kind of quarantining with, you love it. But then go to a hotel with a bunch of, you know, the athletes and all the employees and everyone that works with the UFC, and we're kind of all quarantined together, and you just kind of felt a part of something, and it just made that very difficult time a little bit less difficult, to be able to experience that and to work that and be a part of something like that.
Have you ever counted how many countries you've been in? Cities would probably be impossible, but countries. And is there one event, whether it was the fans, the way the arena was built, or I don't know, one that stands out over the others? And what would be the reason for that?
Oh gosh, I don't know how many countries. I mean, I've been in most of them. There's only like probably 2 or 3 countries I haven't done. But I feel that the event that stood out the most, and it was so long ago, and it just shows how long I've been with UFC, but it was the stadium event Toronto with
Yeah.
GSP. Do you remember that? It was like,
GSP, it was UFC 129. It was GSP against Jake Shields in the main event. Yeah.
yes, it was so incredible. And I was standing right next to Dana, and we were walking out for weigh-ins, I think. Yeah, it wasn't even the fight yet. So it was weigh-ins, and the whole state, I mean, half of the stadium was packed. And you just heard this roar, and to see Dana's face, I thought that was just so incredible to see him surprised and to be right next to this, like, of just how many people loved and supported. And then when we worked the fight, the roar of the audience, you could just feel that, and it vibrated to the center of us because it's all kind of focused in the middle. So I thought that was such a really cool thing to be a part of, and it was so long ago. But I also loved, like, when Conor kind of stepped into the mix, like when you see a new star, that star power, it's just really cool because the excitement was there, and Conor was new, and you just knew he was going to be big, and I thought that was cool to be a part of watching his rise in the UFC.
2 more quick ones. I know the obvious questions you get are probably like, what fighter is one of your favorites? That's too easy, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you've stood there and you've watched a lot of them. Have you ever just had a favorite that no one else does, where you're like, I like that guy or that gal, like just something about them, and it didn't mean whether they were a superstar or a world champion, but was there ever just someone where they just stood out to you and they were just one of your favorites?
You know, I have to go back to like my WEC days because I really appreciate those guys. And you know, you get Uriah Faber and Cowboy Cerrone and Ben Henderson and Jens Pulver. I appreciate them because it's where I kind of started, and their hunger and what they've done for UFC with that weight class.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that those guys will always be like big staple. Brian Stan, I mean, incredible humans, good athletes, and they've done something with themselves after the fact, which I think that's really great. So yeah.
Love it. Nice plug for the WEC. WEC never die for sure. Goes as his glove there behind him. But the last question I want to ask is, I don't know if it's really a question. I think it's a statement. I just want to tell you, and we're going to tell this to Ariane because she's on the show this week as well. I believe that contributor wing needs to have you two in it in the UFC Hall of Fame. I don't know if you've ever been asked about that, how you feel about that, but you know, you guys put in some work. Seriously. Yeah. And you guys were very popular, and a lot of fans came to our sport because of you two. So much credit there. And I think Buffer, Rogan, a lot of others deserve to go in.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, we hope that maybe one day they would consider us. Like you said, we put in a lot of work. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I will always be around UFC. I got front row tickets forever. I'm good. I'll be around. I just won't be in that little outfit.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully, I don't know, maybe 300 is too soon, but we'd love to have you there, or an International Fight Week, or just one of those landmark events. You know what I mean? I did want to say, WEC, shout out to Carlos Condit. I always enjoyed that little snarl he had with the lip, you know, and I think Goes used to say the same thing. And a lot of comedians, I think comedian Joey Diaz used to say, if I'm down an alley, that's the last guy I want to see. And he had the Natural Born Killer nickname, and then he had this look. But you just took me back when you were saying a lot of those names. I used to really dig Carlos Condit as well.
You know what? Add Carlos to my list as well. Him and his wife, great. We spent some time together. Really, really cool people.
Very cool. Well, thanks, Brittney, for the time.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. We hope we can keep in touch. Like I say, the artwork is amazing that you've done inside the UFC, outside the UFC, and I'm sure there's a lot more questions we'd love to ask you because you've had a long and wonderful career. But thank you for today.
Thank you. And anytime I have projects or murals or anything, I will make sure you guys know, and you can always come by.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you.